There are great deeds that remain undone. Enemies yet to conquer and raptures yet to rejoice in. So as it is written, so shall it be done. I, Settra, have proclaimed it. Let none dare oppose my will, because Settra does not serve.
Settra the Imperishable, King of...
Alright, let's end there before Settra starts listing all his names. Contrary to a lot of other races in this game, I actually don't mind the Tomb Kings. They've always just kind of been neutral or friendly, so I wasn't really sure what to expect when going into this campaign. But after the usual upgrades and looking around, we went straight into battle against some wannabe skeleton king who apparently hadn't heard that Settra does not serve. We start off with a Cambrian War Sphinx, so I mean this battle would obviously just be a decisive victory with minimum casualties, right? Well, wrong. Because I apparently forgot about my own army ability and the enemy spawned their Shakti unit right on top of my archers, which obviously just turned them back into dust, so that was nice. With a somewhat embarrassing close victory achieved, I was a unit down. So I headed into the mortuary cult and unlocked the Flock of Jaff, which were like some birds, but they had a special ability, which I tested out on the settlement of our wannabe king neighbor, taking the settlement and actually getting a decisive victory on this one. I went on to recruit some more skeletons, which turns out is pretty cheap. As in, 0 upkeep cheap. So that was a pleasant surprise. And for some reason I was also at war with Zoran of the Necroarch Brotherhood. Gotta say, I wasn't too scared though, because with 0 upkeep I was already feeling pretty imperishable. I recruited a couple more units, giving me a full stack by turn 3, and went on to research the wisdom of the Second Dynasty, because the growth seemed pretty nice at this stage. Also, the drawback to 0 upkeep was that I could only have 1 army at the moment, so getting an extra one through research would be very, very helpful. We'd now also unlocked the Rite of Tauth, which gave me a Casket of Souls, so in you go. At the Springs of Eternal Life, we eventually faced the Necroarch Brotherhood. We were very outnumbered in this fight, and in order to make sure my Casket of Souls remained untouched, I did the noble thing and set up with my back against some rocks. And they came upon us, and we stood our ground, giving them death from above, and got in a very, very delicious rear chariot charge.
Yes! Nice!
The Necroarch Brotherhood was now the Don't Botherhood, and our imperishable dynasty was taking form. I was aware that we had an enemy to the north, which couldn't be ignored for too long. Skarbrand. So I issued the commandment of fucked to speed up construction, because if I didn't take out Skarbrand soon, I would also be fucked. At turn 8, I was given a choice of a free servant, or hero, whatever you want to call it, and I went for the Necrotect, because Necrotect was both cool sounding and fun to say, and well, it also buffed my War Sphinx, so there's that. I then went on to besiege the Black Pyramid of Nagash, because, well, I wanted it. Which is when my murderous neighbor wanted my head. Which, fair enough, if you're collecting skulls, then Settra's is a pretty cool looking one. Now the Battle of the Black Pyramid of Nagash turned into a pretty easy auto-resolve, because Volkmar was passing by and decided to help me out. Which I wasn't gonna pass up, considering my horny neighbor had an eye on my skull. But more importantly, this also secured us the 5th book of Nagash, allowing for another army, more unit capacity for Tomb Guards, plus additional chance for Dune restoration. And in hindsight, I was actually extremely lucky Volkmar helped me out on this one, because Skarbrand was force marching towards me. So I seized the opportunity and went on the offensive. And to my surprise, this battle actually went okay. We set up defensively. I mean, obviously. And although their summons annoyed the fuck out of me, we were able to take out Skarbrand relatively easily, and my legions of skeletons held the bloodletters and hellhounds at bay. With the Khorne threat at least somewhat lowered, I recruited Rakhaf of the Second Dynasty, gave him an army, and started researching the priesthood of Niru for an extra Lich priest. This army was bred with a single purpose: take care of Manfred, because he was pretty beaten up by Wurzag, so I figured that was an easy kill. It turns out though that Skarbrand wasn't actually too much of a hassle, and soon enough both him and his faction were gone, which left me free to knock out both of Settra's quest battles. And the first battle was for the Blessed Blade of Petra, and it was against Logan Rockshake of the Doomseekers, and we would indeed give them what they sought. Settra was now on a War Sphinx himself, and with the help of my Tomb Prince, Necrotect, and the other War Sphinx, supported by the Casket of Souls, we cleaned them up nicely without taking too many casualties. I felt like I was on a roll here and recruited King Warkaf of the First Dynasty, which was now available, because Wurzag was growing a lot stronger than I would have liked, before going in for the final quest battle against some gross Chaos guys for the crown of Neakara. And this battle wasn't exactly hard either, more just annoying actually, because we had to hunt our enemy down. So I set up most of my army between two rocks, cause I've played enough of these quest battles to know that at some point they would probably, certainly, come out of the trees. And while Settra and his Tomb Prince went out searching for them, I was proven right, because they trickled out of the trees, but only to be destroyed by my chariots or Casket of Souls. They did have some armored trolls though, that gave me a bit of a scare, but fortunately they were no match for my Ushabti greatbows. And despite my 8 casualties, we claimed a close victory, that makes sense, and the Crown of Neakara, which gives all allies in range extra weapon damage, armor piercing damage, and charge bonus. So pretty nice. Like I said before though, Wurzag was starting to become quite the potential pain in my very bony ass, so I spent a few turns reconfiguring my armies and building up my strength, before declaring war and attacking Orion's camp. The Battle of Orion's Camp turned out to foreshadow how the Greenskin War would go. Very, very messy. We came in with 2 armies, they had 2 armies plus a garrison, which resulted in this huge clash between Bone and Stone and Green Fury. But Settra does not lose, and we decisively came out on top. Through controlling Orion's camp, I saw that Kevin Bachman was right next to me, and obviously that name means nothing, but he did carry a Book of Nagash, which we weren't doing too well with gathering. So we definitely had to relieve him of his book at some point, but not yet, because the savagery of Wurzag was still haunting my lands. So Settra set course for Antok, ready to exterminate. And this was another huge battle, though I did manage to take out most of their annoying units with Settra before they approached the main army, and my War Sphinx got to play around with some of the more heavier armored orcs, while the rest of them barely made it to my front line. We did suffer quite a bit of casualties though, but out of the 2,200 greenskins who entered the desert, only 600 made it out alive. So that put a smile on my face. The smile quickly faded though, because a big fucking 2-headed bird just stole one of my settlements. And let me tell you, Settra does not tolerate this. But as for right now, we kinda just had to suck it up. Eventually, King Rakash and King Hapros took care of Kevin Bachman in this epic battle, and secured the 6th Book of Nagash, this time for Lore of Shadows practicing Lich Priests and some extra Winds of Magic reserve. Despite helping me out earlier, Volkmar was no longer a friend, and he declared war on us, and wasted no time attacking King Warkaf. And I gotta say, this fight was definitely one of my favorites of this campaign. King Warkaf's army was pretty basic, you know, just skeleton spearmen, carrions, chariots, and a few Ushabti units, accompanied by a Casket of Souls. And Volkmar came at us with flagellants, spearmen, great swords, and some handgunners and crossbowmen. So we clashed in the desert, and while their infantry units smashed against my front line, my chariots wreaked havoc on their crossbowmen and gunners. And watching my Ushabtis just plow through Empire men like it was nothing was absolutely beautiful. And soon enough, Volkmar was left alone on the battlefield, where he was knocked off by Warkaf himself and what remained of my Ushabtis. This was definitely a Pyrrhic victory, because we took a lot of casualties, but Volkmar was wounded and his advance had been heavily disabled, which cleared the way for King Hapros to move on Sudenburg, which again was just another chef's kiss of a battle. Just skeletons and sand versus men and steel. Screaming skull catapult shots flying through the air, and chariots ripping apart men and sand just the same. Absolutely gorgeous. And while King Hapros and Wakaf were staining the dunes with Empire blood, Settra faced Wurzag in the jungles. And I'm not gonna lie, Wurzag was pretty beat at this point, so this fight wasn't exactly tough. I had the numbers, the power, and the high ground, so Settra was just speeding around on his Chariot of the Gods, running orcs down and stopping snotling pump wagons in their tracks. After this battle though, Settra took a break from separating orc heads from their gross green bodies and hunted down Nicolandir the Blade of Skoraril. And as always, seeing elves die breaks my heart a little bit. And that goes double for Weight Watchers. Though the majestic way that these skeleton chariots plow through units made up for it a little bit. But still, I even had to take down tree men. This was such a sad fight, but it had to be done, because Nicolandir was the carrier of the 8th book of Nagash, which improved my commandments with 50%. King Rakash was still dealing with what was left of Wurzag. Like I said, that war was messy and took forever, but eventually we did manage to drive him out of the jungles, which left him with one settlement right next to Thorek, who he was also at war with. So when he came to me with offers of peace, I kinda figured why not. An extra bit of gold from a soon-to-be dead greenskin never hurt anyone. Additionally, all the other humans in the desert had joined Volkmar's cause, so we were now also at war with Thegan's errantry, the Knights of Origo, and the Chevaliers de Lyonesse. We had established contact with High Queen Khalida, so I guess we had that going for us. However, I was pretty tired of not having a united desert and also being constantly attacked by both Frenchmen and Empire boys. So I decided to solve it. While all of that went down, Thorek had also very kindly dealt with Wurzag. Now that the human war was finally over, I took a lesson from my dwarven neighbors and remembered this old grudge I had with the two-headed dick to my south, who not only stole my settlement, but was also turning my jungles purple. So I hit up the old mortuary cult, crafted myself a ton of items, and declared war on Big Bird. And first order of business was obviously to retake Numas, which these fucks took like 30 turns ago. So my trusty servant Wakaf took care of that. King Lamisage, a fairly newly awakened dynasty king, made the first advance against the city of Uatek, and he did so with a pure Ushabti army, because he gives all Ushabti units some pretty good bonuses. And we quickly flooded their settlement, threw down some delicious spells, and won the battle. Pretty well, actually. While Wakaf and Lamisage were clearing the jungles, Settra himself sailed down to the root of the Tsinch problem and took the Fate Weaver's crevasse, which finally made Kairos himself show. Settra set off to personally kill Kairos, while the rest of my army stood steadfast awaiting the Tsinchian forces. My Ushabti Greatbows took care of this flying something on a board, and we now also had hero titans in our midst, so their forces of chaos stood next to no chance. With the Tsinch war well under control, King Hapros had sailed across the sea and had now reached Skavenblight, because somehow the rats had secured a Book of Nagash, which we would take off their gross little hands. And this battle went absolutely awfully. I mean, you'd think that King Hapros, veteran general on a war sphinx, accompanied by necro-sphinxes, catapults, a lich priest, and legions of skeleton spearmen would be able to squash some rats, but I forgot about their fucking nuke until it was pretty much too late, somehow managed to lose both of my necro-sphinxes, and I got my lich priest wounded. So, I mean, we won, but fuck me, that was Pyrrhic.
Please disperse! Nothing to see here, please!
We did get the book though, and with it, some more canopic jars per turn, and plus 10 research rate. So I guess it was worth it, maybe? I didn't really have any intention of dwelling in Skavenblight though, so I sold it back to Ikit for peace and a very nice bit of gold. And the money actually came in handy, because I used it to confederate with Khalida. And while Settra was demon hunting down towards the end of the world, cleaning up the rest of Kairos' faction and some other minor Chaos factions, King Rakash and one of Khalida's armies went up against Krokkar and took him out. So at this point, my dynasty was starting to become quite impressive, except for this little dwarven crack, which annoyed me. So I'm sure you can guess what happens next. And we kicked it off by taking the Golden Tower. The Dwarf War was pretty short, but it gave me a chance to test out Khalida, who gives bonuses to snakes. So just for fun, I gave her a full snake army with some bone giants, which I tested out on a couple of Thorek's armies. And I mean, it was a fun fight. Sneaky snakes, snake knights, and giant skeleton archers. But I didn't exactly play it too well, and yeah, that showed. And with what little was left of Khalida's army, plus a regiment of renown, we attacked Lamia, claimed it, and also secured the first book of Nagash, which boosted our heroes a little bit. And the Dwarven War was going very smooth, until Thorek himself and a reinforcing army attacked my weakest army, commanded by King Warkaf. The Order of Solves had decisive defeat, and I had absolutely no hope of winning this fight, but I mean, what do we have to lose, right? And there was kind of a choke point, a little big, but still I would say a choke point. So I lined up my couple thousand skeletons there with Warkaf and his chariots charging down a hill towards the dwarves. And my staunch line of skeleton spearmen put up a very good fight, taking on wave after wave of dwarves, all while Warkaf was harassing them on their way up and dealing with Thorek single-handedly. And somehow, someway, we won.
There's no way we just won this. Oh my god. That is ridiculous.
Though slightly Pyrrhic. But with this battle, Thorek was beaten, and the Dwarf War was over. So I celebrated my victory over the dwarves with another huge item-getting spree in the mortuary cult, before the Dwarven Wrath came. Because for some stupid reason, me killing 12,000 dwarves and taking their settlements made them disgruntled or whatever, and I was advised to spend my time wisely to prepare for their big reunion. So I took that to heart, and one of the wisest things I can think of to do with my time is to murder greenskins. And more specifically, Skarsnik, who actually had become quite a threat. And we kicked off the war with Settra taking Crooked Fang Fort, Warkaf moved on the sunken Kernak, while Lamisage and his Ushabtis made quick work of the garrison at Galbaraz, which also gave us the long victory. So, good job guys. Now it turns out that I hit a bit of a sore spot with Skarsnik taking Crooked Fang Fort, so he sent Grimgor and 3 other armies to reclaim it. And because we had just taken the settlement, the walls were already damaged, so I set up defensively as high up in the settlement as I could, protecting the victory point. And all their reinforcements, including Grimgor, was coming from this like big rip in the mountains. So I sent Settra out to this choke point to hold them off, which left my Tomb Prince, Hero Titans, and Tomb Guards to hold the fort. And this worked remarkably well. Like, it went a lot better than I was expecting. After breaking down my barricades, they made their way towards the victory point, though under heavy fire from both my towers and Ushabti greatbows. They were able to bring down one of my Hero Titans though, but nevertheless, they were held back. Grimgor managed to slip through the choke point, but he was also defeated by my Tomb Prince, and just like that, the heroic victory was ours. Settra was definitely the MVP in this one though, with 1,904 kills and over 190,000 damage dealt. In the midst of the Skarsnik war, I had Khalida take on Queek, as he'd almost been wiped out by Skarsnik, and I figured this was my chance to make sure his head was taken. But despite my war efforts, we were still 2 books short of having a complete collection. So I sent King Rakash out to Lostria to claim the 5th book of Nagash, putting us at a total of 7. We eventually faced Skarsnik himself, and in the dead of night, with scorpions, bone giants, and necrosphinxes, we mostly ended his green dominion. Which was well timed, because the dwarves had returned, with a lot of grudges to settle. King Thutep began the assault by attacking Fimbur Gundadrak, crushing the dwarves and sending them back to where they came from. I had thought a little bit ahead, okay? So I had sent Settra and Lamisage down towards Karaksorn to stop Thorek before he started taking too many settlements. They obviously had managed to get somewhat of a foothold, but not for long, because Settra was on the move and rushed in on their mountain. I lightning striked the first battle, plowing through the dwarves and winning decisively with 0 casualties, before moving in on Karaksorn. Now obviously we were up against a lot of dwarves in this one, and Settra the Imperishable was the vanguard, breaking down the gates and smashing through the unlucky dwarves that was sat on gate duty. And soon enough, my hero titans moved in, squashing and laser-eyeing all dwarves in sight. And in a matter of minutes, the Battle of Carrickzorn was won, and I sacked it, right in their stout, bearded faces. While that was going on, King Lamisage took on Thoric himself down in the desert, and holy fuck, what a Pyrrhic battle this was. I didn't start it too well because I slightly underestimated the power of dwarven guns. Like, I was gonna go in for like a cool cinematic shot, only to see one of my necrotechs being completely deleted while the other one was left at half health, like in a matter of seconds. And after some fighting, both necrotechs were dead, along with the entirety of my Ushaptis, except for the great bows. We had taken a good amount of dwarves with us though, but we were left with nothing but great bows, catapults, my Lich Priest, and Lamisage himself. And after a lot more grueling fighting, Lamisage was able to stomp Thoric down into the ground, which was littered with dwarf blood and shattered stone. But we emerged victorious, though with only Lamisage and 2 units of great bows. So well fought, Thoric. Well fought. You died valiantly. Settra then moved in on what remained of Thoric's faction, destroying their broken armies at the foot of Carrickzorn. And no, I didn't forget, King Thutep tracked down the final book of Nagash and claimed it from the orcs and beasts that had taken it, finally putting us at 8 out of 8 books collected. So with that, I felt like I had created a pretty imperishable dynasty. And that has been my playthrough of Settra, Great King, the Imperishable, Kemrikara, the Great King of Nehekara, King of Kings, Opener of the Way, Wielder of the Divine Flame, Punisher of Nomads, the Great Unifier, Commander of the Golden Legion, Sacred of Appearance, Bringer of Light, Father of Hawks, Builder of Cities, Protector of the Two Worlds, Keeper of the Hours, Chosen of Petra, High Steward of the Horizon, Sailor of the Great Vitae, Sentinel of the Two Realms, the Undisputed, Begetter of the Begat, Scourge of the Faithless, Carrion Feeder, First of the Charnel Valley, Rider of the Sacred Chariot, Vanquisher of Vermin, Champion of the Death Arena, Mighty Lion of the Infinite Desert, Emperor of the Shifting Sands, He who holds the Scepter, Great Hawk of the Heavens, Arch-Sultan of Atalan, Waker of the Hero Titan, Monarch of the Sky, Majestic Emperor of the Shifting Sands, Champion of the Desert Gods, Breaker of the Ogre Clans, Builder of the Great Pyramid, Terror of the Living, Master of the Never-Ending Horizon, Master of the Necropolises, Taker of Souls, Tyrant to the Foolish, Bearer of Petra's Holy Blade, Scion of Usirian, Scion of Nehek, the Great, Chaser of Nightmares, Keeper of the Royal Herat, Founder of the Mortuary Cult, Banisher of the Grand Hierophant, High Lord Admiral of the Death Fleet, Guardian of the Charnel Pass, Tamer of the Lich King, Unliving Jackal Lord, Dismisser of the Warrior Queen, Charioteer of the Gods, He who does not serve, Slayer of Reditras, Scarab Purger, Favored of Usirian, Player of the Great Game, Liberator of Life, Lord Sand, Wrangler of Scorpions, Emperor of the Dunes, Eternal Sovereign of Hemri's Legions, Seneschal of the Great Sandy Desert, Cursorer of the Living, Regent of the Eastern Mountains, Warden of the Eternal Necropolis, Herald of all Heralds, Caller of the Bitter Wind, God Tamer, Master of the Mortis River, Guardian of the Dead, Great Keeper of the Obelisks, Deacon of the Ash River, Belated of Wakers, General of the Mighty Frame, Summoner of Sandstorms, Master of all Necrotects, Prince of Dust, Tyrant of Araby, Purger of the Greenskin Breathers, Killer of the False Gods Champions, Tyrant of the Goldunes, Golden Bone Lord, Avenger of the Dead, Carrion Master, Eternal Warden of Nehek's Lands, Breaker of Jaff's Bonds, and many, many more.